should we just be going into the relationship with like a list of things that we want?
No, I mean, I don't think it's complicated. I believe it is simple. I have had expectations from other like relationships and it didn't work out, but that was because I wasn't going ahead and sharing what I was wanting in a relationship. I was expecting them to know. But once I've opened up in regards to what I saw my future to be like, and we were going on the same path, because there's always a level into a relationship. You start dating and then, okay, we want to get serious. Then you go into a relationship. You're my boyfriend, you're my girlfriend. From there, it's like, okay, everything's great. We're getting along. I see the habits that you have. And then you go into that long-term relationship of like, okay, the next step is we buy a home together or we get engaged. But not everyone is on that same page, right? Everyone's like, okay, I'm not ready for that commitment. Let's take a little longer to get to know each other. We can go ahead and buy a home, because that's another sort of commitment too. So it's all about growing together. Every stage, you kind of got to check with yourself of where you both are at.
And how much of your personal experiences is used to help others grow in the way you just described?
I would say a lot in regards to that, but I also don't want to go ahead and just because my relationship went that way, yours needs to too, because everyone's different. Everyone's relationship is different. But the thing that I really focus on is, are you being true to you? Are you being honest? Are you communicating what your desires are? Because if you're not being honest with yourself, how can you be honest with your partner?
When you ask them that, what do they say?
They tell me, and they are telling me of like, yeah, this is what I want. I was like, okay, have you had the chance to go ahead and express that to your partner? And they're like, no, I don't know what they're gonna say. I was like, well, then how about you go ahead and tell them and see how things go. And then from there, you can make your decision of, should we continue this relationship or should I go ahead and find someone else? Because that's another thing. When you're in a relationship, you're not completely stuck there. You still have the choice to opt out and go ahead and start new. And that is where people are afraid too, because like you mentioned earlier, come at 30, they're already expecting to have a house and be married. But whose timeline is that? Is that society's or is that yours?
That's a good point, right? That's a very good question. And I think having that timeline put on you is scary. And a lot of people, um, because to get into a relationship, I would say for those listening, is it is scary to get into it, right? Because
Yeah.
it's a certain level of vulnerability because you're trusting the person with your emotions, you're trusting the person with your essence in a way, right?
Hmm.
And to say that maybe, let's say, 6 months into it and you want to opt out, how do you balance between, okay, this person may not be the person for me, but it's better than being alone,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a good point, because I have had women where they've told me of like, but I've already come so far. It's like, do I have to start over? But then my question to them is like, are you willing to settle and be uncomfortable and not create the life that you want, that you see for yourself? Do you want to go ahead and be miserable and be bitter? Like those are your two options. What do you want to go with? The choice is always yours. Do you want to be unhappy or do you want to be happy?
It's like you're right. It's like the joke that people say, right? I'd rather be unhappy with a warm body next to me than happy in a cold bed, right?
Right.
Right. But it's true. It is so true because I'm just trying to think like why would someone, and thank goodness I haven't been really guilty of this, but I haven't been married or anything like that. I'm looking at the people that have been married once, I've been married twice, I've been divorced a few times, right?
Hmm.
And you have to give them credit for continuing down the path of taking their relationship to that level more than once because I would assume it's not easy.
Hmm.
Um because no matter who you are, every time you get divorced, your friends would know versus if it's just a boyfriend or girlfriend, they may not know, right? If it's a couple of months, for example.
Right.
Um, but settling, it seems, has this like negative connotation to it, right? But you raised a good point where you mentioned, okay, if this is not what you want, why are you accepting it? Because there has to be a reason, and it can't be, or shouldn't be, I should say, that, yeah, but what else am I going to do? Right?
That's the majority of the answer that I get, and it goes back to the point of they're afraid of being alone with themselves. And this is why I coach women to love themselves, to enjoy their own company, because that gives you the freedom to travel, to go move wherever you want to eat whatever you want without any restrictions, pretty much to be free to be you. And I am a big fan of working with the universe. I'm big into manifestation. That's kind of how I came about meeting my husband. I was in shitty relationships, and excuse my language, but I had enough. I was tired of not being a priority in someone when they were a priority to me. I was tired of just being taken for granted. And I got to a point where I was like, enough, I'm done. I was like, and I wrote down, I was like, this is what I want in a relationship. I am tired of just not being loved the way I love someone. And I wrote exactly what I wanted. And then 4 months later, I started dating pretty much my best friend that was under my nose, only I wasn't willing to see it because I was chasing men that weren't appreciating me.
And I guess my question in regards to that, because that's an interesting journey. That's an amazing journey because not a lot of people, so many people will leave this earth not experiencing that, right? Because they
Yes.
won't ever realize it. But what made you realize, you know what? I'm involving myself with the wrong type of men. Because for the women out there, they're probably listening and they're probably like, you know what? She's speaking about me. But how would you hit it home with them saying that this is what made me realize I'm involving myself with the wrong type of men consistently?
The thing that I would say is when you are just tired of being heartbroken, once you have been to that rock bottom, there's nowhere else to go but up. There, you always have that choice, like I said, of making a change. You are in control of your life. Like they say, there's a quote, it's like you are the author of your own book. And I decided to go ahead and make that change and live my life the way I wanted. I ended up just living my life, hanging out with people that did love me, my family, my friends. I did things like dancing. That's one of the things that I loved, releasing my energy, and it felt like me. And once I did that, it was already introduced. It was pretty much delivered. And it's like, here you go. And from there, it's like, are you willing to take a risk? And at first, I'll admit, I was scared. I was terrified. I didn't want to go ahead and repeat that same pattern, but this was a completely different person. I couldn't expect them to believe, like, oh, she's going to break my heart just like my ex did, because I'm a different person. So I just, I guess, was willing to gamble my love again. And if I was able to heal from the past, I can heal again.